Hello and welcome to Signal Lantern, your beacon of freedom for the Northeast. I'm your host, Matt, for this episode, and I'm sitting here with a friend of mine named Alex Haggerty.
Matt, awesome to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Fantastic. And I've been honestly so waiting to talk to you because, I know a lot about you, your, history and politics and what you're doing now, but I think it'd be something that's pretty fascinating for our, few listeners to actually get to hear. So, tell me a bit about yourself. Where are you from? How'd you get into politics?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm excited to be on your podcast. This is where people really get the real news these days. It's not the establishment media and stuff like that here in Massachusetts or even on the national level. But, so my name is Alex Haggerty. I'm a lifelong resident of the town of Abington, born and raised. Actually, my father as well. My mom grew up. My mother was born in Lowell, and then she moved to South Weymouth, grew up in South Weymouth. And so my brothers and I, we've been living in Abington. And I graduated from Abington High, got my associate's degree at Massasoit Community College, or as we called it when we went, was UMass Brockton. And then I originally went to school for history and theater. But then at some point, I'd always been interested in politics. I voted. We had a mock election in kindergarten. Was it kindergarten? Kindergarten. We had a mock election for George W. Bush and Al Gore. I was one of the few kids that voted for George W. Bush. I was 5. Yeah, I was 5. And then I volunteered for a select board candidate, school committee, state rep. I got involved with State Representative Jeff Deal back when he was the 7th Plymouth District state rep. I managed Allison Sullivan Almeida's campaign in 2018. She is now our state rep. And then from 2018 to 2021, I served on the Abington Board of Health elected board. Town politics is supposed to be nonpartisan, but you and I both know that's a bunch of BS, because I had every dagger thrown at me when I ran for Board of Health, and then when I even went to Select Board in 2021, from 2021 to 2024, the daggers coming at me because I had an R next to my name, even though on the ballot, it doesn't show that you're a Republican, Democrat, unenrolled, or Green Party. People look in your background and say, "Oh, I'm not going to vote for Alex Haggerty because he's a registered Republican." But so I served 6 years in local government, Board of Health, and Board of Selectmen. In January of 2024, I had enough of the select board, and also was a discussion with my family. To either run for re-election to the select board or run for Mass GOP State Committee, which is an 80-member board that is supposed to represent the Republican Party all across the Commonwealth. So I chose to run for Mass GOP State Committee in Quincy, Braintree, Holbrook, Abington, Rockland, and Hanover. Won decisively, which was great. And so I've been doing that since, and enjoying every moment of it.
Well, that's absolutely fantastic. And I know that your political career has, been wrought with, some controversy, some of your own, personal issues and attacks against even, your own character because of just who you are.
Oh, no, absolutely. So one of the things that's unique about me is I am president of the Log Cabin Republicans of Greater Boston. For people who don't know, Log Cabin Republicans is the nation's oldest and longest standing gay outreach for the Republican Party. It actually was founded in 1978 with kind of the help of then Governor of California, Ronald Reagan. There was an initiative in California, that ballot initiative in California, that would make it legal to fire people in the education field for being an openly gay person. It was supported by Democrats and Republicans. It had about a 65 to 70% approval rating. It was going to pass at the ballot box, but there was a group of conservative Republicans, gay Republicans, I should say, in California, that were door knocking, doing the canvassing that you do to try to stop the initiative. They reached out to President Carter at the time, thinking as progressive as he was that maybe he would come in support. Didn't hear a peep. They reached out and took a shot in the dark. I was like, you know what, let's reach out to Governor Ronald Reagan. And they reached out, and Ronald Reagan came back quickly and said, you know, this is discrimination, this is wrong. He actually came out against it. And then days later, President Jimmy Carter conveniently came out against the initiative. But on Election Day, that initiative, the Briggs Initiative, that once had a 65 to 70% approval rating, failed by about that same margin. And it's because of the gay Republicans who went out and campaigned, and with the help of Ronald Reagan. So that small group of gay Republicans then became log cabin Republicans. So I've been doing that for a number of years in Massachusetts. It's not easy with how blue Massachusetts is on a national level. People thinking in mind, more Massachusetts people are independent. But you definitely get a lot of daggers thrown at you.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I can only imagine what it must be like, you know, being an openly gay Republican in such a deep blue state, especially when so many members of the LGBTQ community, you know, tend to go left. And I mean, even as time has gone by and, you know, being openly gay has become more accepted in our society, you know, especially amongst Republicans.
Yeah.
I can only imagine, you know, that it is still difficult. I mean, have you, you know, encountered any of that difficulty from, you know, people on the right?
I have. I've in my experience, I've received it more from the left than I have from the right. I have received it from people on the right, and there were times where I stood up to members of my own party and called out their biases and their bigotry toward people like me for just simply existing. There was an individual in 2021 who was on the state committee who had targeted myself and a congressional candidate, saying, please don't invite them to any events. They shouldn't speak. They don't belong in the party, blah, blah, blah. And it was petty. And I think it's also it's un-Republican, to be honest with you. We're the party of individual liberty and personal freedom. So when you want to limit, you know, who should be in the party, you know, and if they differ from you, that's really not a Republican value. That's more of a Democrat value, excluding people. That's what a lot of the Democrat Party does. I'll never forget when I was door knocking for my select board race in Abington. There was a person I knocked on the door. You know, they had a rainbow flag on the front lawn, and I was like, I'm going to door knock any and every door to talk to anybody. And the person had asked me, was like, oh, are you of the community? And I was like, well, yeah, I'm a gay person, stuff like that. And like, oh, that's great. I'll vote for you. Then they started asking me some policy questions. And they go, wait a second, are you a Republican? And I said, yes. She starts screaming and yelling, get off my lawn, you effing F word, and stuff like that. And it was so eye-opening that if you don't agree 100%, with the agenda, you're ostracized. And the thing is, for most gay people that I know, and I am speaking for myself, that I just want to be treated like everybody else. If I'm a jerk, treat me like a jerk. If I'm a good person, treat me like a good person. And most gay people are also fiscally conservative. That's a demographic that I think the Republicans need to gravitate more towards, because on the fiscal government policies, you're more aligned with the GOP.
It's honestly just so fascinating to, you know, hear the, you know, the takes and experiences of somebody, you know, as an openly gay Republican. It's just fascinating to think that, like, you know, the people on the left, they try to, you know, push acceptance and stuff like that, and yet you seem to have gotten a lot of pushback from them.
Oh no, and they're more annoyed that I'm a registered Republican. I remember when I spoke out against an inappropriate book at the Abington Middle School library, and most of the attacks came from people on the left. I remember there was one article that said, the conservatives are trying to ban books and stuff like that. One complicating matter was a gay selectman, and it's like, I have a name. Like, and that's, being gay is not the most important thing about me. I mean, it's like, I think it's, and that's where I think I've disagreed or broken part from the gay left as it was, because it's like, it's not the most important piece of my identity. It's not what it, my family and my beliefs are more important to me than anything else.
Yeah, and a lot of people nowadays, they're having a hard time finding what they actually do believe in. They kind of the whole push of identity politics, I think, has muddied the waters of politics in general. It used to be that people would look at a candidate's policies and go, I like most of what you're saying, I think I'll vote for you. And nowadays it feels like a lot of people tend to look at, okay, well, what's this person's background? I don't give a crap about their policies. I might disagree with a lot of it, but I care more about who they are, and not even necessarily as a deeper level. It's more of a surface level kind of thing.
No, and I think, and that's I think why we're in the situation we are, especially here in Massachusetts, because it's not about a lot of elections are not about policies, but about personalities, and we right now desperately in Massachusetts, we need people who are qualified for elected positions. This isn't a popularity contest. High school is over, folks. And it's like it's not a popularity contest. We need good governance. We need good people who actually have policies, who actually have positions on issues. I mean, looking at, there's the state wants to get rid of Prop 2.5. Whether you like Prop 2.5 or not, it's an option for the voters to have a say in their taxes. We get rid of Prop 2.5, as the Mass Dem supermajority wants to do on Beacon Hill. Beacon Hill can raise our taxes anytime they please. We will have lost that voice. And there are people running for state rep on the South Shore or running for state senate who want to get rid of Prop 2.5. I mean, it's asinine.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I mean, speaking of the tax hikes too, I I just found out yesterday about a heating tax that it looks like the bill is going to get passed, and it's going to go into effect right after the election.
Yeah.
And it's going to, like, everyone's heating bills are already extremely through the roof, and now they're throwing an extra tax on top of it. And initially at face value, it's attacking oil, heat, natural gas, anything that isn't electric. But the bill is slated to also start attacking electric heat as well in the future. But again, this isn't going to go into effect until after the election happens.
Oh, isn't that convenient? I mean, it's similar to there's a reason why Massachusetts is in the top 4 of most left states in the nation. I mean, we have in the last 3 years, especially under the Healy-Driscoll administration, we have lost so many Massachusetts residents. I mean, it's like, even working on the campaign trail now, how many people were calling for donations and volunteers. Says, sorry, I moved to South Carolina. Oh, sorry, I moved to Tennessee. Oh, sorry, we moved to New Hampshire. It's like the one bad policy after another that just like going into your pocket. I'm sure you've heard about like the Freedom to Move Act, where the state legislature is pushing, where it's basically a tax on how much you drive your car. I mean, they might as well just call it, the going after working families act. I mean, it's like, imagine that you now have to pay in some way or form taxes or your income to drive to your work. That single mom that's working 2 jobs, or single father is working 2 jobs, minimum wage jobs, to put food on the table, and you're going to tax them through the oblivion so they can go to and from their job. It's ridiculous. But then state legislators are exempt from the law. I mean, as what is it? Rules for thee, but not for me. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, to an extent, like I always try to look at both sides of every argument. You know, that kind of law, I can look at it from the other side and go, well, the reason they're doing this is because they want to encourage people to use public transit so it's cleaner for the environment. And it's like, okay, that's great on paper. But a lot of these policies tend not to actually take into account the real toll of them going in.
Yeah.
You know, the unintended consequences, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, that I feel like a lot of policies, especially in, you know, not just Massachusetts, but around New England as a whole, you know, that tend to be more, you know, left-leaning policies. That is the kind of the unintended consequences. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. On paper, a lot of these policies sound great, but then in execution, they just make life harder for the everyday person.
Oh yeah, no, it's like it's kind of like how I talk when people talk about like socialism. They use that same argument, or democratic socialism, or whatever, you know, which is just a piece of crap with a bow on it. Socialism, they always say, it's like, oh, it's great on paper, it's never been, you know, properly executed. No, it's bad on paper, and it will never work in person because of human nature. I mean, you can, like, Bernie Sanders, he could be a wonderful, wonderful human being, could be a great socialist, whatever, and stuff like that, a humanitarian, even though he's not. But just for the sake of argument, if he was, like, what screws up socialism is human nature, that you could have a perfect person right now, but it's what after that it's just somebody who's out for themselves. I mean, you saw that with Venezuela, with Maduro. I mean, he was elected as a democratic socialist, like, and how quickly, you know, you turn the Venezuelan economy into one of the most thriving in the world, to now being one of the most corrupt and poorest.
Yeah, no, the main issue, honestly, with politics, regardless of side, is, you know, the corruption and greed and people going out for themselves. You know, yeah, you can take fantastic policies that are intended to enrich the lives of your citizens. You know, like you could take universal health care, for instance. On paper, that sounds fantastic. Everybody gets their health care paid for with our taxes. That's great. But then you add on administrative costs, you know, like all of the different costs along the way.
Yeah.
You look at our, you know, everyone talks about how our healthcare system is so broken and so corrupt, and then you really want government bureaucracy also getting mixed up in that?
Oh yeah.
You like people say like, "Oh, I don't want the government to decide what I do with my body," and yet you want the government to have direct control of your healthcare.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. And you know what's one of my favorite facts about, you know, when people go into the argument about healthcare, the United States could have had universal healthcare in the 1970s. And it was being proposed by Republican President Richard Nixon. And the only reason that it did not happen was because Massachusetts Senator Ted Kennedy fought hard and said, no, we're not going to give this win to President Richard Nixon. And actually, later in his life, he said he regretted that stance. But we could, you know, and that's a cheap excuse. But, you know, so it's, Republicans were pushing for universal health care long before Democrats were. And when we had the opportunity to, Democrats said, no, we don't. So that's I love that factoid, because it's good to throw in the Mass Dems' face.
It's so funny because I actually didn't even know about that. You know, I try to keep myself as educated as possible on, you know, those kinds of issues, and that is actually a little fact I didn't know.
Oh yeah, no, it's my father taught me that one. I was like, oh, interesting.
You know, and again, it's so fascinating because I feel like back then there may have been, you know, a good bit less corruption within our country. You know, people were much more willing to work together, like you said, as the 1970s.
Yeah.
You know, and
well, the Tip O'Neill, Ronald Reagan days, where they fought like hell during campaign season, but when elections were over, they shut up and came together.
Yeah. No, it was attack your opponent on the campaign trail and then have a beer with them after.
Exactly.
You know, it was a different time, and frankly, I think it was a better time.
No, and there are moments where I wish we could return to that. So I currently right now I'm campaign manager for Elizabeth Dionne for state treasurer. She's running as a Republican. She's a select woman from Belmont. She served 10 years in local government in Belmont. She's an attorney. She's a mom. Absolutely dynamic candidate. We actually met a couple of weeks ago, Auditor DiZoglio, who is a Democrat, and we had a wonderful back and forth with her. And I think the auditor was a little surprised to hear, because there were a bunch of us and we were all Republicans. She goes, "You guys are all Republicans and you like me?" And they go, "Yeah." I go, "Because you're doing what the people voted you to do." And she's honestly the only constitutional office right now in Mass that's fighting for Massachusetts voters.
Oh yeah, no, Auditor DiZoglio, I have nothing but immense respect for, and I have quite a few Democrats that I have, a good amount of respect for, but that's only because, you look at their past actions and it proves like they care about the people.
Exactly. Yeah. And I was a campaign coordinator. I was what was it? I was a campaign coordinator. I had a title on the Amore for state auditor campaign in 2022. I ran the gay coalition for Amore for auditor, which I was very honored to do. We went very hard on Auditor DiZoglio. I try in my experiences campaigning and political and just things in life, I try to do things so I don't regret them. I think we went way too hard on her in 2022. And actually, I had a back and forth with her last year where there's not a lot of things I regret in my life, but that was one of them. And she actually got back to me right away. She said, "Oh yeah, I remember you," and stuff like that. Because I firmly believe in giving credit where credit is due. She's doing the work of the people, and she really is the only one fighting for us on Beacon Hill. And she is a Democrat that I'd love to work with.
Yeah, no, even as I was kind of poring over some of the governor candidates as they, started coming out of the woodwork, I had kept reading, that people were asking Auditor DiZoglio, "Would you consider running against Maura Healey?" And there was that little part of me that was going, "Please do it. Please, please do it."
Oh, yeah. I think she's good where she is. I would probably tell her, don't do a kamikaze mission, because I think that will end badly. They'll throw her under the bus. They already are. With not letting this audit happen. It's absolutely ridiculous. And so on the state committee, I represent the city of Quincy, and I try to remind folks about the audit and, not happening. The Speaker of the House, Ron Mariano, who is always endorsed by the Massachusetts Teachers Association, when he was asked about whether the audit is going to happen or not, one of the very first questions when he was asked about it, and his exact quote was, "Compliance is in the eye of the beholder." And which for it makes you scratch your head and I go, what the hell does that mean? I go, so we can pick and choose, you can pick and choose what laws and votes of the people you can just accept or ignore. I hope people take that same approach if you're drinking and driving. You get pulled over by a cop, and says, "Oh, I'm sorry, drunk is in the eye of the drinker." It is so ridiculous, but that's the leadership we have on Beacon Hill right now.
Yeah, no, it honestly, that I think is the main thing that scares me and should scare a lot of people in Massachusetts. The fact that, that audit passed with overwhelming bipartisan support among all the voters, Republicans, Democrats, Independents.
72% of us said we give Auditor DiZoglio the authority to audit the state legislature.
Yeah, and then the legislature said, "No, we don't feel like it."
They just went like this. And it's such a disrespect. And when you talk about, we hear Democrat activists say, threat to democracy, threat to democracy. When the vote of the people is overwhelmingly ignored and blatantly ignored like the Mass Dem supermajority is doing, that is the greatest threat to our democracy.
Honestly, if anything, I think it could just easily be said that the greatest threat to our democracy is the uniparty. Massachusetts is so overwhelmingly blue. The vast majority of our elected offices are blue. And yeah, we basically just have a situation where they're just saying, no, we just don't want to, and there's nothing you can do about it
Yeah.
because too many people in the state are so stuck in that vote blue no matter who
Yeah.
mindset that they're not willing to vote for an independent because they're like, well, you're an independent, you don't have a chance, and you're a Republican, even though I might agree with the vast majority of things you say, you have an R next to your name, therefore you're the devil.
Oh no, exactly. And this old mindset of like, oh well, people say, oh well, I knew the Kennedys. Oh well, I knew the Bulgers. I mean, it's like, oh, I knew Tip O'Neill and stuff like that. Those Democrats are gone. Those philosophies of the JFK Democrats, that's gone. That party is gone. I mean, Representative Stephen Lynch from the 8th Congressional District, he was elected as a conservative Democrat. I mean, you look at some of his polls now. He's a nice man. I've worked with him on different things. Very nice man, but it's like his rhetoric and policies have changed since 2001, completely to another way. I mean, like if it's. So, and that's one of the things that we as Republicans have to do is have those conversations with people in mass. It says, party's left you. It's gone.
Yeah, no, I think you're hitting the nail on the head perfectly. And I mean, my own foray into politics, obviously I'll out myself. I ran as a Republican, but I find that I tend to be a much more moderate Republican, maybe just barely right of center. And I've met plenty of, especially older Democrats, who they complain about the current state of the party. They feel as though, yeah, the party has left them behind. And they're getting very frustrated with it. And my main question is, how far does the party have to go, like the Democrat Party have to go before people start saying, this is too much, I don't like this?
Well, even what happened, even 2024, if I was a registered Democrat, 14 million people voted to have Joe Biden be the nominee. He dropped out, probably should have dropped out long before that, but that regardless. The party coronated Vice President Harris to be the nominee without any votes in a primary. She didn't win any votes in a primary in 2020 or in 2024. She dropped out of the presidential race before a single ballot was cast in the Iowa caucus in 2020. She was not a single primary voter voted for her to be the nominee in 2024. And for the party that screams, democracy, 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 you didn't care. You didn't care that she was coronated. I mean, for all the no kings, you had no problem, coronating a queen. You had no problem. Like, and that's where I say to some Democrats who are on the fringe, like, the party's left you. It really truly has. And you look at it's a party of the elites and wealthy class.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And I mean, I know you're not exactly a firearms guy, and I'm the absolute gun nut, but I mean, one of the other things that I kind of think of, kind of going back to the whole, like, the state legislature can just choose to ignore our votes.
Yeah.
The upcoming assault weapons ban vote that's going to be happening this November, it almost makes me scared because I've been watching what our state government's been doing with that. And it was like when the Civil Rights Coalition was about to hit their signature goal, our governor signed the emergency preamble to just push it through anyway, to ignore the signature collection. So that way it would go into effect. And now, we had the audit vote and the government just said, you know what, we're just going to ignore this. It makes me scared that come November, say the assault weapons ban gets absolutely decimated in the polls and we vote to overturn it. And then the government just says, yeah, but we really don't like the idea of you guys having guns, so we're just going to ignore this vote. And then on top of that, I see, so many people on the left who are so up in arms saying, our current administration is gone into a dictatorship, it's authoritarian, fascism, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, how do you prevent stuff like that? How do you take your country back? Well, you need an armed populace. What's the very first thing that every authoritarian government does? Private ownership of firearms becomes outlawed because they don't want you getting any ideas of becoming armed, forming militias, and taking back the government.
How did Maduro in Venezuela become a dictator? Was outlawing guns for citizens.
Well, it's not just, using Maduro. You could also look at Nazi Germany in the 1930s. One of the first things that happened, it was, gun registration, then gun confiscation, and then the camps.
This is another little off topic, excuse me. But another known fact. I'm a history nerd and political nerd, but I like to remind people who go in very severe lengths about how much they love socialism. And I said, who was the National Socialist Party of Germany? And they're like, oh, I don't know. I've never heard of that before. I go, yeah, they started. The party started with an N and ended with an Nazi. That was the National Socialist Party.
Yeah.
But to your point about unarming citizens, that's a dangerous road we don't want to go down.
Exactly, and that's why it's like our entire thing is shoot down the assault weapons ban. I thankfully I own an AR-15. I own a couple high capacity, standard capacity 30-round magazines for it because they're all pre-ban from the 1994 assault weapons ban, I think it was.
Yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous. But, there's that part of me that's like, if the government does actually become authoritarian and it hits that point where the citizens need to start taking up arms to forcefully remove it, I feel as though I might be prepared, but the person next door to me who never had their license to carry, never had their never had a reason to go out and buy a gun. Well, now they want to go out and look at them, but they can't get anything that would even put a dent in drywall.
Yeah.
It's completely ridiculous.
No, and I hope we never have to get to that point. I hope we don't, and that's why I reiterate as much as possible to people that it's so important that you get out to vote, no matter if it's president or local levels. I actually encourage more people to pay attention to more local races than anything else. Local leaders have more effect on our lives, taxes and public safety and education than the president does. I was having a back and forth with a Democrat recently about that. Like, I go, regardless of who the president is, the select board, the school committee, the board of health, the planning board, they all have your state rep, your state senator, they have more control of your life than the president does. And it's so important, and we need people to get out to vote. But I mean, it's definitely difficult here in Massachusetts because you alluded to it earlier. Because the Mass Dems have a monopoly on the voting electorate, especially when it comes to state rep districts and state senate districts. I mean, gerrymandering was founded here. I mean, explain to me how a city of Quincy has 103,000 people, one state senator. East Bridgewater, which on a good day has less than 8,000 people living in it, and it's a conservative town, they have 2 state senators. How is that? And the Mass Dems say that's fair? Absolutely not. How is it that the city of Quincy has 3 state reps for 103,000 people, yet the town of Halifax, which has less than 6,000 people, has 2 state reps? Quincy only has 1 more state rep than a town of 6,000 people? That doesn't make any sense. And you look at the maps for state rep districts and state senate districts and congressional districts. I mean, it's like some of them look like spiders, and it's just like it's incredible how how do you get these maps? And that's one thing that I have been advocating as a state committee man, that we need to start, preparing for 2030 and 2032 to have a legal fund to fight the gerrymandering here in Massachusetts.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've looked at some of those maps, the the state rep maps, the congressional maps. I mean, to take, poking a little bit more at Congressman Stephen Lynch, you look at his district and it goes very far south into, West Bridgewater, East Bridgewater, obviously Abington, Quincy, Norwell, a ton of these towns that have smaller populations that do tend to vote a bit more red.
Yeah.
But then it also swings out wide and encompasses Brockton. It grabs Quincy, but then there's also a little snake that just goes right up along the coastline into South Boston.
Yeah.
And it goes around another congressional district just to sweep up to South Boston. And there's 750,000 people in the district, with the vast majority of them being in South Boston, Quincy, and Brockton. All three of those areas are going to vote heavily blue. All three of them are very densely populated.
Yeah.
And then they're just going to completely overshadow the rest of those smaller population towns that are in the district that tend to vote red. It's not, the gerrymandering is absolutely ridiculous. If anything, it shouldn't be these like weird, looking like someone's drunk trying to draw an area.
No, and that's why, like, when the Democrat state legislators from Texas were complaining about gerrymandering in Texas, and then they ran away to New York, Illinois, and Massachusetts. I'm like, wow. I mean, like, you're running away from gerrymandering, and then you run to some of the most gerrymandered states in the country. Like, don't take our advice, please.
No, and it's like, we can't sit there and just, bash the Democrat uniparty here in Massachusetts. I mean, the uniparty of Republicans in Texas also are guilty of the same thing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No, and that's where I love or hate our party, but I respect when we have disagreements in our own party and call out the bad actors in our party when they do things that, they probably shouldn't be doing. Yeah, like don't gerrymander the crap out of state legislators. Like we complain when the Dems do it, so why should we do it? Again, also, that's probably never going to happen in a perfect world, but no, and that's one of the things that I appreciate about our party, that we can have a difference of opinion on different things and actually have a debate. Whereas, the Democrat Party is, you're not lock in step, all of a sudden you're, Senator Manchin from West Virginia, bye-bye. Senator Sinema from Arizona, bye-bye. I mean, like, and look at how they're treating Senator Fetterman out of Pennsylvania. Like, they want to kick him out of the caucus. If you don't go lock in step with the party, bye-bye.
Exactly. And I mean, Senator Fetterman, I've come to, deeply respect him over the last few years. I mean, even before he, had the stroke and seemed to have done a political 180.
Yeah.
Even then, years ago, I listened to some of the stuff that he said, and I was like, you know what, I can get behind some of that. And I mean, even more so now, it seems like a lot of what he's been saying it seems to just be, we need to enforce the laws in this country. We need to actually comply with the laws in this country. Whether that be, actually calling out, if the current administration is doing something wrong, or being in favor of something that they're doing because it legitimately complies with the law.
Yeah.
It's something that I respect. Same thing with former mayor of New York, Eric Adams.
Yeah.
I looked into his track record. I saw that New York, under his leadership, became safer. It became a better place to live, better school systems, and it's like, well, why is that? He's a Democrat, but he cared about the people. He's a former NYPD officer. He was fantastic. And the thing that ruined his career as the mayor of New York was the fact that he didn't want to comply with just letting illegal immigrants go in flood the streets of New York. He was actively fighting the Biden administration on that. So they brought him up on charges and tried to basically have him removed from office.
Yeah.
And then when Trump got back into office, he had all the lawsuits and stuff dropped. And that's kind of what ended up destroying Eric Adams as the mayor of New York, even though he had done a fantastic job for years and made New York, kind of the symbol of America.
Yeah.
Especially to the outside world. And he got removed purely because, well, President Trump agreed with him on something. He didn't want him prosecuted anymore.
Yeah.
And now they have Zoran Mandani as the mayor, and we're a month in, and I have not been hearing good things coming out of New York.
No. And actually, I mean, the trains are now more expensive? I thought the transit was supposed to be free, and all of a sudden there was an increase in the fees for the transit in New York. So, hey, way to go, everybody!
I know it's kind of one of those situations of somebody warns you, kind of harkening back to the democratic socialism conversation that we had earlier. Somebody tries to warn you, like, hey, this kind of stuff has been tried before. It never worked out well.
Yeah.
And then I think a lot of people were hoping that Mondani would succeed.
Yeah.
And because then he would be the, kind of the thing they would point at and go, look, it can work in America. And it's like we're a month in and things are already, taking that downward turn.
Yeah.
Over the next few years, you're just going to have a bunch of people pointing at that going, that's a cautionary tale.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately now, I mean, you've given whiskey and car keys to a teenage boy. I mean, it's like, it's not going to end well. Like, it's incredible that it's with Mamdani. I mean, like, in a bad way. I mean, it's just like, it's scary. And I pray and I worry for New York City.
Yeah, no, I again, it's the whole thing of, I don't wish failure upon the people that I disagree with.
Yeah.
I hope they succeed. I don't want any politician, regardless of party or political belief, to be a failure. I don't want it to happen, because I know that when our politicians fail, it just harms everyone. Nobody wins.
Absolutely.
Like, the Republicans can sit there and point at New York and go, see, that's a failure. You got what you voted for. You got what you asked for. It's like, stop that.
Yeah.
Because all you're doing is pointing at that and going, sucks to be you. No, there are people in New York that are now suffering. There are people that did not vote for that are suffering as a result of him being elected and his policies. And you're basically cheering the pain and suffering of those people.
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, I'm bashing, what Republicans are probably going to be doing, because I know that is what they're going to be doing. And I don't want them to do that.
Yeah.
But it also just is the exact same thing on the left. Anytime President Trump does something that's bad, that, affects people negatively, they sit there and they cheer. And it's like, yeah, but people that didn't vote for him are getting hurt as a result of it.
Exactly.
So don't cheer for the things that he does bad. Point them out, definitely, but don't cheer them.
Like, I didn't vote for Maura Healey for governor in 2022, but I was a selectman when she was sworn in, and on her inauguration day, I had put something out on my social media and saying I wish her and Kim Driscoll well. I go, because if they succeed, then we succeed. I take that same approach, Matt. I mean, like, I don't, if our elected officials fail, then we fail. Like, and I hate it when I do see people who are cheering for the opposite side to fail. I mean, it's like, was it Ted Nugent who was very, very adamant about, like, hoping that President Obama would fail? And I'm like, what the hell are you doing? If he fails, then we fail. Like, and that is such a wrong mindset to have. You can disagree with somebody on policies and things like that, but it's like, you do not want things to get worse for people here.
Exactly. That's the general mindset that I think everybody needs to, start working towards, is we want our politicians to succeed regardless of party. Again, like, the old school politics. You can bash each other on the campaign trail, but go and have a beer afterwards. Work together. I think it was Ronald Reagan that pushed the old adage, you know, if we agree on 80% of issues and disagree on 20, let's work together on the 80 and disagree about the 20 later.
Yeah. You know, there's, this is the first time I'm ever going to say this on camera, but people know this story. So when and it just goes to show this, how out of touch some of the people in Massachusetts are, or even especially with the governor's race. I had advocated for revenge porn laws in Massachusetts for a number of years. I'm a survivor of it. My ex did it to me. And it was rough. And at the time, you know, going to the Abington police station, and they said, sorry, what your ex did to you is legal here in Massachusetts. We were one of 13 states that did not have any laws. Charlie Baker and Karen Polito advocated for revenge porn laws for 8 years. Didn't go anywhere because of the Democrat state legislature. Senate President Spilka specifically said in 2022, we're not giving Charlie Baker the win out the door. And one of the things so I eventually, through hard work and other survivors coming through, you know, and for a number of years, not just me. There were people who were advocating for revenge porn laws long before I decided to say, you know what, I'm going public with what happened to me. It was signed into law under Maura Healey, and I went to the bill signing, and I'm standing in line. My mother wanted me to say hello to her. My mother's maiden name is Healey, but it's L-Y, not L-E-Y, and stuff. So. My mom wanted that. I'm standing in line, and Healy's up on the platform, and she has an Irish whisper, and she calls up the aide, and she goes and points and goes, you see that guy in the purple tie? And I was wearing a purple tie for, you know, survivors. That's the color for the survivors. And the lady goes, yeah. And she goes, him. She goes, I don't want a picture with him. He's on the Republican State Committee, and I saw his gay Republican article in the Herald. I don't want a picture with him. And the legislative aide said, Governor, he's been huge in this revenge porn law business. I'm like, in trying to get it passed. He shared his story, and she goes, I don't care. Like that. And my friend heard it, my state rep heard it, Allison, and because my friend said, you heard that, right? I go, oh yeah, I'm staying in line, like that. And so she, at some point, she had her back towards us, and the aide goes, Alex, come on up, like that. And so the governor had her back to us, and the aide goes, oh, excuse me, Governor, I want to introduce you to a survivor who's been instrumental on this legislation and very brave. She starts talking. She goes, oh, it's so wonderful, so nice to meet. Thanks for being here, like that. And her and I had some conversation and things, and she said to me, she goes, no, thank you for being here and stuff like that. I put my hand out. And I go, oh, Governor, I wouldn't have missed this for the world. I go, and I leaned in a little more, and I go, some things are bigger than politics. Like that. And I gave her a wink. And it's like, it was, because I'm like, you think about it, I'm like, trust me, I was hurt when I heard that. And more so, my father was more hurt than anybody else, because he's like, are you serious? Like, this is about people. This is about lives. But it's like, it's incredible, but, you know, and even our state senator, John Keenan, he got so much malarkey from different people on Beacon Hill that I advocated for the revenge porn bill with him. And like, there was a senator from Central Mass who berated him in his office about me. And saying, what the hell are you doing having, he used other words, you know, what the hell are you doing having a Republican selectman advocating for your bill and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's about people. We should be able to, we should be able to come together on issues. And it's like, like you fight like hell during campaign season, and then when it's policies and trying to help people, make government better, make life better for people, shut up and get along. Shut up and work together.
Exactly. I mean, honestly, just hearing you talk about that, it blows my mind that anybody could actually have an issue with such a bill going through.
Oh, well, I'll never forget Senator Eldridge from Central Mass. In February of 2023, he was quoted in the Boston Herald or Boston Globe, one of them, and said, oh, I'm paraphrasing, revenge porn doesn't happen here in Massachusetts. And that pissed me off to no degree. Like, it was so irritating. And I'm like, and that for me was when I said to Allison Sullivan Almeida and John Keenan, was like, okay, we're going full ham on this now. Like, I go, that is ridiculous. And I sat across from him during this judiciary hearing which he was chairing. And I sat across from him, and one of my first lines from my testimony, and I looked directly at him as I said it. This was the only line that I remembered specifically from my written speech, and I made it a point to look right at him, was revenge porn is not a faceless or victimless crime. And I paused and just stared at him. There were other people who testified who kind of did similar things, but called him out directly. But it was so disgusting. And but then when the bill passed, he's rushing to the cameras and say, "Oh, this is great, for the Commonwealth and stuff like that." And it's like, "Oh, you son of a gun! You didn't want this to happen. And now that you did everything you could to discredit that this, revenge porn doesn't happen in Massachusetts." But it's, again, like you were saying, it's like, what is the problem with getting behind something like that?
Exactly. I mean, even if you don't truly believe it,
yeah,
like in an instance like that where you're sitting there openly claiming, well, that doesn't happen in Massachusetts. Okay, that's great. Even if that were completely true, having a law like that on the books would criminalize it in the event it did happen in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be any pushback to things like that.
Well, then even some of the excuses that other leaders had made was, well, we don't know about the constitutionality of it. We need to make sure. When it happened to me, we were one of 13 states that didn't have revenge porn laws. And when it eventually passed in 2024, it was signed into law in 2024, or when I testified in 2023, we were one of 2 states. So 48 other states had already passed laws. Freaking copy and paste for God's sakes. Constitutionality, give me a break. That's an excuse. It is absolutely constitutional to do that.
Yeah, it's a crime. It's blackmail. It's, hell, it could even be considered, what is it? Defamation of character?
Yeah.
In a way.
There are people I know that have killed themselves because of it. I mean, when it happened to me, I felt so hopeless. If Allison wasn't our rep yet. If she hadn't called me after I had called her in the morning, I was flooring it down Washington Street in Abington, and where the fork in the middle there with the big rock and stuff like that, that little park. I was flooring it down Washington Street, and I'm like, if she hadn't called, I probably would have kept my foot on the gas, and I probably wouldn't be here. The comforting and guidance that she helped me through it, it was huge. But other people didn't have those avenues, and I was able to confront my ex. I was able to do that, but not everybody else has that opportunity. And that was the reason that I went forward, was because I don't want to see it happen to somebody else. I don't want somebody else to suffer.
Yeah. You want to stand up for others that don't have the same voice that you do.
Exactly. No, and one of the things I said in my testimony was, I don't want to be here, but I'm here because other people that this happened to, they couldn't be here because they're laying in a cemetery. Like there are people who have been blackmailed with revenge porn, and it's as I said to Eldridge during the hearing, it's not a faceless or victimless crime. But no, I mean, like there is opportunities that we can come together, but it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of work, and that's why I think one of the working for Elizabeth Dionne for state treasurer, when we had that conversation with Auditor DiZoglio, we had a good back and forth, and I think it's important that if granted the privilege to serve. I think DiZoglio and Elizabeth Dionne could work together for the greater good of the Commonwealth. And whoever is, the governor, hopefully, knock on wood, it's short sleeve Minogue or Keneally. Any one of them would be miles better than Maura Healey.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, I haven't been looking too much into it. Do you know if any Democrats are trying to primary her?
There was a rumor of a former ambassador to New Zealand, or I forget what ambassadorship it was, but it doesn't sound like they're going to.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, again, not really something I remember I looked into it a couple of months ago, and I had saw a list of candidates, and obviously our state auditor was listed as a potential, and I was like, please.
Oh,
it's
know.
There are Democrats in the state that I would gladly vote for over Maura Healey, and unfortunately none of them are really willing to take the career risk.
Yeah.
Because they're smart. They know what'll happen if they try to go against her.
And the thing is, a challenger could possibly win at the convention, the Democrat convention. I mean, just look at what happens with Secretary Galvin. The last two times, I believe he's lost at the convention both times. But then you go to the primary, which is a day after Labor Day, which is absolutely asinine. And he wins the primary handsomely. The deck is stacked against anyone challenging or in primarying the incumbents on the Democrat side.
Yeah, it feels hopeless at times, but I think we need to encourage more people to get involved, take the risk.
One of the things that I am very encouraged by in November, Republicans did not do well nationally in Pennsylvania, Virginia, and New Jersey. So, and everyone is, oh my gosh, what's going to happen with 2026 and stuff like that. Massachusetts, we did well. We picked up seats in cities all across the Commonwealth. We picked up seats in local boards, school committees, select boards. I mean, Abington, we had, a special election. We put a common sense voice on the select board. I think there's something going on here in Massachusetts that people are just fed up. And honestly, I think the biggest telltale sign for people waking up is we voted 72% for that audit. 2.3 million voters said we want an audit of the state legislature. And the Speaker of the House, the Senate President, the Governor, and the Attorney General have basically say, hey, take a long walk on a short pier. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean,
No, honestly, I really can't wait to see what happens this election cycle, and as the job that, we're trying to do is, to be involved, get people out, get people informed, encourage people to become volunteers, find a candidate that you look at their policies and you go, I like that. I want to go hold signs for you.
Yeah.
I want to go door knock. We always want to try to encourage people to be volunteers, and we're going to be trying to look for, fantastic candidates that we can, get them on here, get their voice heard. Every select board candidate might be, lower property taxes in your town.
Yeah.
You know, like the right select board candidates, school board candidates, those are so important because they are going to be shaping, you know, the education system for our kids, the future of our state, you know, the future voters.
The budgeting of the school departments.
That's a whole nother topic.
Oh, I know that.
I don't want to get into
I know
right
what
now.
exactly that.
You know, but no, and I've reached out to a couple people that, you know, we had worked with this past November, and I'm hoping to have them on as candidates. And I also hope that, you know, your candidate will make the long ride out here.
Oh yeah, no,
one of these times, or we can try to do it remotely if it doesn't work for.
But well, you know what, Elizabeth Dionne and I mean, like we are going all over the Commonwealth. Last night we were in Acton. We're going up to the State House this evening for the State of the Commonwealth. Saturday we're going to Rockport and Billerica. Sunday she's doing a radio interview with former Massachusetts Congressman Peter Blute. We're crisscrossing. We've been in, let's see, Foxborough, Worcester, Lowell, New Bedford, Abington. She did Abington Camp, which was great. No, it's just like to get everywhere and anywhere. I mean, the state treasurer is the most powerful elected position in Massachusetts that people know nothing about. And control, you know, she oversees 12, you know, treasury departments, you know, the Alcohol Beverage Control Commission, the Cannabis Commission, the lottery, the state lottery, which is huge with the unrestricted government funding aid that is supposed to go back to local cities and towns. I mean, we were in New Bedford. New Bedford, the greater New Bedford area is the largest customer, if you will, or contributor to the lottery. Yet their receipts coming back from the lottery has not increased since the 90s. Like, how is that possible? And it's because it's not being fairly distributed. And that's where you need to have a taxpayer's treasurer like Elizabeth Dionne to be fighting and advocating for you know, economic equity, actually, to be honest with you, to make sure that the cities and towns are getting their fair share. And this is such a winnable race, too. You know, the incumbent is very unpopular. This is going to be a very interesting race to watch.
Yeah, no, and like you said, this is a position that not a lot of people know about. You know, everyone knows the governor, your state reps, all that stuff. But I mean, I didn't even know that the state treasurer was an elected position. I would have figured that sounds like the kind of thing that's appointed by the governor.
Yeah.
You know, just purely based on the role.
Well, the reason why it's so uniquely powerful, and actually the governor is, compared to other governors across the state, the country, our governor's power is weak, because every time there was a Republican governor, they would give something, they would take something away from the governor and give it to the state treasurer's office, like the lottery. Well, was it Frank Sargent? Frank Sargent, I believe, was governor of Massachusetts, a Republican, and they took it away and gave it to the state treasurer. And then the Alcohol Beverage Commission with Mitt Romney, they took that away from Mitt Romney when he was governor and gave it to the treasurer. And then when Charlie Baker was governor, they took the Cannabis Commission away and gave it to the treasurer with a little responsibility to the attorney general. So it's a uniquely powerful position that people knew nothing about. We really need somebody who's a relentless reformer like Elizabeth, who can do the job well and not, you know, wasteful spending. I mean, the whole situation with Shannon O'Brien, like she's in charge of the Cannabis Control Commission, and you know, back in the day, you know, she was state treasurer and stuff like that. Whether people like her or not, she does her job, and that upset Deb Goldberg and her cronies, the current treasurer, and she fired her, you know, falsely claimed racism and stuff like that. Shannon O'Brien fought it and won in court. but we taxpayers spent over $1 million over a personal vendetta because Deb Goldberg was pissed off with Shannon O'Brien. We paid for that. I mean, Deb Goldberg, we pay for a dress allowance. The Treasury Department, with the taxpayers, we pay for a $20 million in the last 3 years of rental space. We spend, yet the state has assets. The state has property. Why are we spending 20 million additional dollars for rental space for the treasurer's office? Use something that's a government entity, for crying out loud. But those are when you look at those monies that's spent at the Treasury is money not going back to cities and towns.
Yeah. No, it like many things in our government, that sounds like that needs a reform. Where's the Department of Government Efficiency?
Oh, I know. Exactly. No, so if people want to get involved, please, it's Vote Dionne, Doni. Excuse me, my gosh.
Coffee hasn't kicked in yet.
The coffee hasn't kicked in. Vote Dionne, DIONNE.com. I'm our campaign manager, Alex Haggerty. Please reach out to us. We're on Facebook, Instagram, X, and TikTok. So help us in any way we can. This is such a winnable race. Again, Vote Dionne, DIONNE.
There you go. All right. Well, I think we've been yammering on for long enough. So I would absolutely love to thank you for coming out and chatting with me for a while. You know, it's been absolutely fantastic, especially getting to introduce you to people. I can't wait to, sit down and talk with your candidate a little bit. She can put her message out there and, talk to anyone who's listening.
Yeah.
And hopefully that might get her a bit more traction, that she otherwise wouldn't have gotten. But
oh no, absolutely. We're going on every show we can, every podcast we can go on. We'll go into every meeting we can. This is going to be one that way.
Well, that's absolutely fantastic.
Well, and thank you for having me too.
Yeah, of course. So I'd like to thank you all for listening. Please remember that this podcast won't go anywhere if you don't share it around. We have the podcast on Spotify, YouTube, I believe Apple Podcast. I'll have to talk with Jason about that. He's the one that manages where all the stuff goes. But sharing is going to be how we do it. And hopefully this podcast will be going up either later tonight or tomorrow morning, depending on how things go.
Cool beans.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt.